we're going to talk about how we choose and construct the perfect hero image for our e-commerce homepage. And this is part of our Perfect E-commerce Site series, where we are creating the ideal e-commerce site that sells, that connects emotionally, connects logically, and handles all of the things like risk reversal and story and branding, etc. And so the hero image of your site, especially in a sale period of time like Q4, which we're getting into right now in the e-commerce world, it is a critical part of your homepage. It's a critical part of your site and strategy. It's the first thing people see, and it will literally make or break the sale or your promotional sale if you get it wrong, right? And so while it's simple, we really need to dissect it and be intentional about optimizing it. You have about 5 seconds to win someone before they jump off your site, to convince them to stay. And some research says that it's actually a lot less than that. And it's a lot harder even when you take into account that most traffic is mobile now. And so we really better construct a hero image that is effective. We spend all this time creating products, creating marketing, creating sales, spending tons of money on Facebook and Instagram and other places, getting people over to our site. And then how much effort are you spending on making sure they actually convert and stay? For most people, it's disproportionate. And then they wonder why their ROAS is bad. And then they blame it on the Facebook ads, when it's usually not the case. And so let's talk about how we create a really great hero image. And so there are 7 qualities of a really great hero image for your e-commerce homepage. The first one is it's clear. It needs to be obvious and simple and not overwhelming. The purpose of that hero image is to communicate something. And so what you're going to communicate needs to be really, really clear. And by clear, I also mean it can't be confusing, obviously, because if it was confusing, it wouldn't be clear. But for so many brands, especially when they have to communicate sales, they think of these very complicated sales. And we talk about the best type of sales and the best type of offers in other posts, especially for Q4. But the best type of sales are simple ones, not very complicated tier discounts, not complicated buy this, get that kind of thing. Look, we want to be creative, but we want to be as simple as possible because that's the only way people will act. Confused people don't buy. And so we want to make sure that our image is clear, communicates very clearly. Second, it needs to be catchy. And so this is in how you use color and some of these other things, but it needs to be bold and catchy because the purpose of this thing is to keep someone around. And if it's easy to overlook, or if it's something that is distasteful to your audience, then it's going to do the opposite. It's going to reject people. It's not going to do its job. And so it needs to be catchy. It needs to be something that draws people in. Third, it needs to have a call to action. I don't know how many times I look at a hero image for a sale. It doesn't actually have a button on it. Like, put a button on the hero image at all times, no matter where the image goes. It needs to link and it needs to always have a button no matter what you're saying, because people need to take action. If you're going to tell them something, you need to give them an action to take. So it needs to have a call to action. It needs to be clear. Fourth, it needs to be adaptive. And what I mean by this is it needs to be able to communicate, do all these things on every screen size really, really well. And so obviously on desktop, you can have a really immersive, big hero image. It probably shouldn't be too big, but it should be, it can be immersive. On mobile, where normally our desktop has a horizontal view, on mobile, it's a vertical view, right? And so the image, if you just scale it down, will be super tiny and barely legible. So you need to make sure that it's adaptive. You probably need to have a different mobile image or some other way to make sure that you're doing all these things, but also on mobile for mobile screen sizes. The fifth thing is it needs to be easy to swap. So one of the keys to running an e-commerce sale really, really smoothly, especially in Q4. And then we teach this in our boot camp, our Q4 e-commerce boot camp, which you can find on our website. We also teach this in a few different other guides that we have out there. But there's a way to make sure that this is all on autopilot, right? Your store changes each day with each sale automatically. And the way to do that, or one aspect, the only way you can do that, is making sure that it's easy for someone to change that image. Now, there's ways to automate the change of that image, but the step number one is make sure that it's easy to actually change that image. That it's not, you have to email your web developer and, go through all this red tape to change that image, because it's going to be ineffective, because that image needs to be very current and very contextual to what's going on. Number 6, it needs to be single. That doesn't mean like not married. It needs to be single, meaning like we don't need a bunch of hero images. Every test we've ever done, a single image works better than multiple images. No one cares about the second slide and the third slide and the fourth slide. They only care about the one slide. And it's actually quite frustrating when you're looking at it, especially when it's a sale and it moves and it changes to something else. And so unless there's a real reason for your brand to communicate multiple things in that hero area, right? So there might be certain companies and brands that's the case, and there definitely have been ones that we've worked with where that's the case. Unless that's the case, you need to stay with a single image. And for most people, it should be a single image. For most brands, if they have multiple images, it's usually because they couldn't decide on one thing, and so they just decided to make everyone happy and put a bunch of things, but no one cares about everything past the first slide. And so make it a single image. And then the last thing, the 7th thing, is coordinate it with your marketing, aka make sure that it's contextual. And so we've discussed how to personalize, going from your ad to your landing page to your emails, etc., and make sure that journey and all those steps kind of go together. And that's how you create a higher converting path. We've talked about that before. Now, make sure that this is the case with your hero image, especially in a sale period, right? So if you're marketing about a sale, when they get to the site, if you're sending them to the homepage, but even if you're sending them to the collection page, like we teach you to do, there's a hero image on the collection page. Make sure that hero image reflects the sale graphics and branding and all the marketing material. And especially if they're new customers, make sure that those that image reflects your brand and really introduces them to your brand effectively, rather than just asking them to buy your product. And so those are 7 qualities of a really good hero image. Now let's talk about 6 things to consider when you're creating that great hero image. All right, so these are more tactical things. First thing is have intentional focus. Whether you have to decide whether you're going to make the focus of a hero image on people, like a human being, or a product. Where you focus people, that's where they will go. And so you need to make sure that your hero image is communicating the things you want to communicate with your customer and what you want them to do. And so, is that you or is that them? Are you putting the focus on you as the company, your product, or are you putting the focus on them and the result that they can get? It depends on the type of product you sell. It depends on the business that you have. You also have to ask yourself the question: what emotion does your hero image give? Right? Is it peace? Is it loving? Is it excitement? And these all go into the focus of your hero image. The second thing is use color, right? We talked about how it needs to be catchy. Make sure you use color to grab attention, and not just any color. Make sure you're using colors that go along with your brand. Make sure you're using colors that don't reject, that are not distasteful to your customers. And so make sure that you're following your customer avatar, which we can link to, and understanding who they are, and then appropriately using color inside of that. The third thing is make a bold statement. And so we talked about clarity. This is how you execute. One way you execute clarity is making a bold statement. So if that's a sale, make sure that sale is obvious. If it's a product statement or a brand statement or a result statement, make sure that that statement is clear, bold, and obvious. And because you only have 5 seconds, make sure that it's intriguing enough to make someone stay, because you want to hook them so they continue, that they click or they continue to scroll. The fourth thing is, if it's a sale, make sure you give relevant details in the subtext. So things like a discount code. There's so many times where I look at a sale that may not be converting well, and it turns out the hero image doesn't have the relevant details for the sale. So it says 25% off Black Friday, whatever, and it doesn't direct customers. You may think, well, it automatically comes off, or they'll figure it out. The customers will drop if there's any sense of being unclear or not knowing where they're going. And so you really want to be extremely clear. So you could say offer taken off, discount taken off in cart, or use code blah blah blah. You want to make sure that those details are inside of that hero image in subtext, so that somebody understands that they're in the right place, and that they can take full advantage of what you're offering. The next thing is always have a CTA, right? So we mentioned it before, but make sure when you're executing that CTA, make sure that the button, it's an actual image, it's a button, it's a thing that they can click. Even if it's an image in an image, make sure that it's something that they're used to clicking. And always link your heroes to something, whether it's a page, whether it's a product, whether it's a collection page. Make sure that when you're telling them to do something, you give them that next action to do it, and make sure that you have that all set up. The last thing is make sure that you have at least a mobile and a desktop version. We talked about in the 7 qualities of a good hero image, it needing to be adaptive to every screen size. And so unless you have a more intricate type of website where it will adapt in a different way, most people will need a desktop version and a mobile version, or some other way to make sure that on mobile, the same things can be communicated just as effectively through that hero image. And so those are 6 things to consider when you're constructing a great hero image. And we'll put some examples of great hero images that do all these things in the actual article on our website. And now, how do we measure the success of your hero image? And so one way to measure that is bounce rate, especially if it's a home page or an entrant page, like a collection page or something like that. Your bounce rate will communicate whether or not you're grabbing people and keeping them. Now, your bounce rate may not all be associated, or isn't all associated with your hero image. It can have to do with your marketing and who you're getting to the site and a bunch of other things. But your hero image does play a role in keeping people around, because it's the first thing they will likely see, and its job is to keep people there. And so your bounce rate. The second one is your click-through rate. Click-through to your linked page, right? So we're always going to have a link on our hero image, and measuring the click-through rate and that people are clicking is going to tell you how effective that image is. It's also going to tell you how effective what you're saying on that image is. And the last thing is the scroll percentage on the page. Like, where do people scroll to? Like, are you getting people intrigued enough to either click or scroll? Because if you're not, then it's probably not effective, or there's something else wrong. And so just to kind of summarize up, don't just leave your hero image to the whims of the person executing it. Like, a lot of brands will say, hey, they'll take all this time constructing their sales, maybe their Q4 sales, their Black Friday sale, Cyber Monday, all these different things, right? Or just their brand and their product launch. They'll take all this time doing that, and then they'll leave the construction of some of these critical elements like the hero image down to just one person, and they're without intention around it. Doesn't mean that person's not good. It just doesn't. It means they'll leave it to be whatever it becomes, and it ends up being made without great intention and without strategy. And then because of that, it's less effective. And this can be the difference between the effectiveness of your sales and your product launches and your Q4 performance and being really, really good or really bad. And so it's really important to focus on this. And so if you need help transforming your e-commerce business into something that performs at an even better rate and is healthier, then that's what we do. So contact us.